welcome back from the brain dates. I hope you had a a great conversation. So we're going to jump right in and speak to each of our panelists here. They were all leading various brain dates through the last few hours, and so we're just going to take a few minutes, very briefly. Each one of them is going to be telling us a little bit about the conversation that they had and how they're thinking about collective action and what are the learnings that they received over the last couple of hours and how they see that they could then use that maybe in the work that they're doing going ahead. So, Alex.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alex. I'm with Teach for All. And I want to talk about three things. I want to talk about truth and hope and action. I'm going to go outside of the realms of our session. So I think today I was sitting watching the incredible segments from different people, and I was confronted by truth a lot. I have two kids who are 2 years old, and when Tasso was sharing about those droughts in the Amazon, I was worrying about the world. When I heard from those people in schools and classrooms about the challenges of poverty and for women and of violence, I was thinking it's important to remind ourselves of the truth that we sometimes face in our systems. But more than that, I felt today a lot of hope. And the hope came through all of the people that were responding to those situations, through the incredible student leader who was building her library, through the work of the young female community leader who became a leader in her community, through the work of every single one of the people that I've encountered in our sessions and who's got on stage today, and I'm sure all of you too. And that hope is what inspires us in this collective action work. And then when it comes to the final thing about action, we've learned lots today about action and what that means to take it. And at Teach for All, we talk about collective leadership for collective action. And by collective leadership, we mean people who are working with a shared purpose at all levels of the ecosystem around students, who have connections with one another and processes for learning together. And I heard all of those things in our session and across the course of today. In purpose, it's that idea of doing what's right, really finding that purpose within ourselves and building that shared purpose amongst ourselves to work towards equity, to be willing to break the rules if they're getting in the way of doing what's right. I think secondly about the roles that we all play and the seats that we sit in the system, and those matter, the things that we do as teachers or policymakers or leaders of organizations, but also the role we play that's got nothing to do with our seat as humans, connecting with one another, being ourselves, living according to our values. That's vital. Then I think about connection. Everybody that I heard in our session and throughout the course of today has valued relationships above all. How do we get to know one another? How do we build rapport with one another? How do we go beyond the role to see the person that's sitting there in front of us? And the idea of using empathy, building connection, is so critical to our work and has come through in everything. And then finally, we talk a lot at Teach for All about the value, the power of learning. Everything we do is to do with bringing together the collective intelligence, wisdom, expertise, insights of groups of people like this, coming together, whether it's on a Zoom call or in an auditorium, to share what we know. And we confront this huge challenge of improving education in India and globally, that if there was an easy answer to, we would have solved it. The only way we can approach it is to learn together, to share what we know. And I just heard countless examples of that, of creating spaces and finding ways to share learning between institutions, between different leaders, between different states, and globally as well. And I think that commitment to learning is a kind of fourth pillar that we see in collective leadership. And then finally, the thing that has most inspired me today is that I travel all over the world and I talk about systemic change in education, and everywhere I go, I feel like the odd one out, that I'm swimming against the tide, telling people this story of collective action that they're not quite ready to hear, they don't really understand, and they can't see why I'm talking about it so much. But here, I feel like I'm with my people, and it's so inspiring to see an entire conference of leaders who get that collective action is so vital. And I think I take that as inspiration. This is the heart of change in education, how to think about change in education, not just for India but for the world. And I'm excited to think in the future about how we can harness that to inspire others with what you already know and are doing and the way that you're being.
Thank you, Alex. I especially liked, you talking about some of these softer elements like hope, building relationships, empathy. I think these are so vital in movements, right? And we don't often talk about them, right? We talk about action only, and you mentioned that, but there is so much more around it that facilitates for this type of collective action and unifying, to happen. So thank you.
I mean, just on that, I think like the thing that is happening in this room is those two things at once. Like you have on the one hand, we know how to do this, we know the processes, we know the approaches and the role we can play as teachers, but we also know it's a way of being and connecting and doing things together.
Yes, thank you. Polina, you work in exponential change, and collective action is vital to creating exponential change. So was there something in your brain date that you discovered or that you kind of understood from the group?
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Polina. I come from Center for Exponential Change. And our core belief is that exponential problems require exponential response because societal challenges are becoming only more complex with time. So we co-travel with system orchestrators, and by that we mean social leaders who are ready to take up the role of bringing the ecosystem towards working to solve the same issue at scale. And when we talk about scale, collective action is the response. One of our key principles is about distributing the ability to solve. But before we talk about distributing the ability to solve in the ecosystem, we talk about distributing the ability to see. And that involves seeing who is there, who is working towards the same problem that you have. How do you unite your powers? We talk about being unified but not uniform. So today we brought 3 leaders from different domains for our brain date on purpose, because we wanted to show that the challenges and the mindset shifts that are required for social leaders are similar regardless whether you work like Aniket towards the government welfare schemes implementation, or Shanti, who works with persons with disabilities, or Sucheta, the CEO of Dream a Dream, who works with young people from vulnerable backgrounds and helping them to thrive. So we, I think we discussed a lot about how working towards ambitious problems, ambitious numbers, it's very important to focus on the process and trust people in the ecosystem because numbers sometimes can be overwhelming and people might be going in different directions and feel like, this is impossible. How do we unite? There is so much adversity that is bringing you back. But I think our session showed that before organizational changes, it's crucial for everybody who goes on a journey to scale to go through mindset shifts. And those mindset shifts are like being problem-focused rather than solution-focused, not sticking to the solution that you are already driving, and seeing the actual size of the problem and how do you unite the ecosystem around that. So that you actually scale your impact and not your organization. So that were our key points of conversation, and actually our session was focused on generally the whole framework of exponential change that we follow at C4C, and I want to bring to your attention that we have a set of books, Think Scale, Think Speed, and Think Sustain. It is available online under Creative Commons for free, and everybody who cares about scale, about building the network, about working with other people and sharing the same path, I invite you to check out those books. Yeah.
Thanks, Polina, and thank you for your perspectives. François.
Thank you, Shruti, and thanks for being here. Just for the Schwab Foundation, really, it's been a pleasure to partner on this event. We're here to learn, but I think also to share, and so the brain date was about that. And I have some board members in the audience. I think Mirai Chatterjee, Tassa Azevedo, and Professor Subi Rangan, who this morning spoke about the different kinds of ships and which are the most important ones. And I think he spoke about relationship. And I think we all thought about that at an individual level, but I think also at an organizational level, we are needing to build the muscle around how organizations are in relationship with each other. So our brain date was around not only scale, but really thinking about systemic change and how collective platforms can be important when thinking about systemic change. So we reflected on that, and we had three amazing collective social innovators, as we refer to them, because the collectives aren't one thing, right? There we have system orchestrators, field catalysts, all these different terminologies we're using, but actually what's really interesting, if you look around the world, there are many different approaches depending on the context and the industry sector and the maturity of the arc of change in some of those spaces. So it was we were really delighted to have Ashraf Patel here, who many people know in India from Community. We had James Parker from ProForest and Caroline Monyoy from the Coalition for Health, the Community Health Impact Coalition around community health workers, and the amount of policy changes they've made in the last 5 years. So it was really kind of exciting, and I'm also here to give you a sneak peek that we are going to be part of our role at the Foundation and the World Economic Forum is to really amplify what's happening in the world and bring that to the attention of kind of more global audiences. And I think you're finding that people are not understanding what we're talking about when we talk about collectives, and I think we have this more mainstream platform to really surface what's happening, give it some additional language, put it into the mainstream. And so this topic and this report we're giving you a sneak peek to is called The Future is Collective, and is really starting to try and make the people outside of this circle also aware of the power of what's needed right now. And I mentioned this last night at a dinner, that I think, and I've spent 20 years thinking about social innovation, the innovation we need right now is how we work together. It's not necessarily the technology or the business model, but really getting, and so spending time thinking about how collectives work and what our approaches are and how we can get better at doing that is the journey we're on together with all of you. And I want to leave you then with a quote from Adam Kahane, who is a member of our community and author of many books, including Collaborating with the Enemy and Everyday Habits of Transforming Systems. And we read this out in our brain date. So he says, collaboration across differences is both increasingly necessary and increasingly difficult. To address the challenges we face, we need to work with unlike others from diverse organizations, sectors, and backgrounds, whether from down the street or across the globe. But our tendency, amplified by our politics, psychology, and social media, is to categorize others as right or wrong, good or bad, friends or enemies, and it's making it harder for us to do what we need to do. So the collectives are pioneering ways to narrow this gap. So that's the journey we're on. And the last quote is from Yuval Noah Harari, who says, humans rule the world not because we are so wise, but because we are the only animals that can cooperate flexibly in large numbers. So there's a lot of hope in a time of quite a lot of polarization in the world, and that if we're intentional about how we build platforms that work together, I think we have more hope for education sector, but also so many others that we're here to learn from. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think it's great to be ending on a hopeful note. Right? Not always possible these days. So thank you so much for your insights and for the time that you gave to us today. And I'm looking forward to this report. It's very exciting. Thank you so much.